so much, everyone, for joining us. Happy Thursday evening. I'm Evelyn Jerome-Alexander. I'm the founder of Magellan College Counseling. You might call me an entrepreneur, which is entirely relevant to today's conversation, which is a fabulous panel of experts who are involved in business in some way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they're doing now and or what they've done in their careers that is related to business. And then I will ask some questions and I will open the floor up to let you ask some questions as well, our live audience. And what we'll do is if you notice in your Zoom box, there should be a Q&A button at the very bottom. As our panelists are talking, I will be monitoring the Q&A box. And if you want to drop your questions in there, I will ask the panel your questions. So I'm going to keep myself on mute. And the other thing I will do in the chat box is whenever one of our panelists says something that is fabulous, and I think you should remember it, I'm going to try to type it into the chat box as fast as I can so that we have a little record of all of this wonderful advice we're getting. So we are going to start with the fabulous Barbara Palmer. Ladies first. Tell us a little bit about your career path and what you're doing now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you to the 40 plus people who have joined today. I think that's an impressive number of folks who are prioritizing this time, and your time is valuable, so I want to make the most out of it. My name is Barbara Palmer. I currently have a company called Broad Perspective Consulting, and my title is Top Broad. And you can look at that one of two ways. I am top broad in terms of being the utmost female in the organization, but I also have a broad experience. And I work with a lot of folks who are early stage leaders in their organization. I also work with interns and first-time professionals, and I'm a marketer by trade. I started at Paramount Pictures and I had great times in the entertainment field. Early or late in 1999, I went into technology because that was an emerging thing. And then I went into a number of other areas, including running a digital agency. And when I left my last corporate job, I decided that I wanted to give back. I wanted to do what I had always done, which is mentor, which is a word that's important for you to get to know, and really coach people through what it's like to get their first job, their fifth job. Excuse my French, but I focus in on your oh shit moments. Oh shit, they just had me lead a team or a project. I have to delegate, I have to receive feedback or give feedback. Someone may have lost their job. And so I just want to share with you that these are all the ups and downs of a career. And you're at the very early stages where everything seems so big and so impactful and life learning. And all of those things will be, but I actually choose the philosophy of a giant chess game. So I might move my rook out too early, but it may give me the chance to checkmate later. So it really is just how do each of these pieces come together? What classes do you take? What does your internship look like? Who are your role models? And I'm here today to answer questions, but also to give you some tips that you can do now as a high school or college student that will set you up for success in the future. So thank you for having me.
Fabulous. What a great introduction. I already have some great little snippets from what you said. Thank you. We'll go next to Aidan Hettler, who is a bit of an early stage leader, but given how early stage he is, I think you all will be incredibly impressed with what he's doing and where he is right now.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Evelyn, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So hi, everyone. I'm Aidan Hettler, like Evelyn mentioned. I have the privilege of serving as the Chief Executive Officer of a rural health system out in northeastern Colorado. So I have the duty to oversee 5 different facilities. We have a critical access hospital, 2 rural health clinics, a nursing home, and an assisted living. And I have about 150 employees working for me. So we're a small but mighty team and serve a very important mission in a medically underserved area. My career path has been a surprising one and an interesting one, but one that I'm grateful for nevertheless. So I actually graduated from Colorado State University in December of 2021, so very recently. And from there, I entered the workforce and worked for Lockheed Martin, which was a continuation of an internship that I had in corporate contracting. And I was so thankful to start my career there and learned a lot about corporate culture. And I really appreciated it before I had the opportunity to come and lead this organization. So it's been incredible. And I think one of the biggest things that I can say that I've learned since entering the industry in general is how you show up really matters. And being an authentic person, not just as an employee, but being, truly a person, a friend, and showing up with your whole heart, your whole emotion, and the desire to do well in your role is really important. And that'll be just as important in your college career as well. So how you show up every day to your professors, your friends, your projects, that all is a reflection of you at the end of the day. And it doesn't necessarily matter that, you had the all-star GPA or the highest SAT scores or, or all of those things that we're made up to believe and are hyped up to believe in society. So I'm hoping to expand more on that later, but yeah, I'm happy to be here and I'm looking forward to taking your questions and being a part of this conversation.
Wow, I'm feeling a mic drop right there. So we might come back to that. I love that. Scott, why don't you go next? We are so fortunate today to have the spouses of two of our Magellan counselors. I love both of them. Scott Liebert has been in business for many, many years and has a really interesting role in real estate. So I know a lot of students are really interested in real estate. Tell us a little bit about what you do, Scott.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Interesting, I don't know, but real estate has a lot of different paths and opportunities to follow. You can be in the sales end of it, you could be the management end of it, you can be in the financing end of it, you can be doing so many different things that may speak to you. I got my license immediately after graduating from USC back in 1982. But really never did anything with the sales side of it, but having the knowledge of it was very valuable. What I focus on personally is in the management of multifamily properties, as well as commercial properties. We do investments, have done development, have done entitlement of land and what have you. I'm going to take a step back a moment and tell you that when I started at USC, right out of high school, I started out in the business school. Didn't like the business school. I didn't like it because of all of the accounting that I was doing. Sorry, Danny, but all of the accounting that I was doing. And from there, switched over to public administration, urban and regional planning, which really spoke to me and is more along the path of what I am doing today. Ironically, a lot of what I'm doing today entails a lot of accounting. So it was good to have that background and the exposure of many of the classes that the business school offered. I think that there's a big crossover in that. As far as the real estate industry, because it's so broad, I think that finding a path that really speaks to you, following your dreams is really important. And any career path that you're going to follow going forward, you're going to fine tune it as you go through your college career and possibly after. And hopefully you find something that speaks to you. At this point, 40 odd years later, I can tell you, not every day is a perfect day, but every day is a day that you're glad at least for me, I'm following a career path that really speaks to me. And having an opportunity to work with other people that we speak a similar language, we enjoy what we're doing, and hope that we're making a difference in the way we're going about doing it.
So you just described every day of my life as a college counselor. Wow. And working with your wife and Rusty's wife is a big part of that. Wow. Whew. Okay, moving on to Danny. So you have some interesting roles as well. You have the accounting side, but you also have the finance investment side. And I think a lot of young people who think they're interested in business, one of their few exposures, shall we say, to business is finance, is the stock market, right? So that's one of the more visible career paths to young people. So talk to us a little bit about what exactly you do in your multiple roles and sort of how you got there.
Absolutely. Nice to be here with everybody, and I hope I can answer questions and provide some insight into my career. I started in accounting mainly because my family has an accounting firm that's been around for now 3 generations, now that I'm at the helm of it. And went to UC Berkeley graduate with a business administration degree, and eventually went back to USC and got a master's of accounting. Shortly thereafter, I started working for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I worked in their forensic accounting group. And that's basically complex transactions, solving questions for litigation reasons. It also might be following up on court-ordered research. If, say, a company is found to be guilty of something and they need to document that they're no longer behaving poorly, so that was kind of what I started doing. Turns out didn't like it very much, because at the beginning of your career, you end up doing the menial work, and that's just the way it works. So I did a rotation into the audit practice, focusing on financial services customers. So that would be investment advisory firms, mutual funds, and the like, and really enjoyed the field, but did not enjoy audit. So audit is a difficult thing. A lot of people do not like it. They do it for a couple of years to get experience at a big firm and then move on to another firm. So from there, I ended up at an investment advisory firm where I did equity research. And so what equity research is basically a team invests money for either a specific client or maybe a mutual fund in general that a lot of people invest in. And my job was to research undervalued stocks and make recommendations to include them in the investment portfolio. And that was very interesting work, although the environment that I worked in was not something that I could see myself in a long-term basis being happy in. And eventually decided to leave the firm and start my own wealth management firm. So in 2010, I started a investment advisory firm that's focused on asset allocations and financial planning. The whole time I was always working part-time in the family tax practice because I was a trained CPA at that point. And unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 34 years old, and took the practice over because it was a great business, and it was something that I could easily step into and continue to operate. And a lot of the clients that we had been clients of my father for 30 years, and some of them were my grandfather's clients. And to this day, I still do some tax returns for people that are in their late 90s, and one guy's 104, believe it or not. But what ties it all together for me is, in both fields, whether it be doing tax preparation or investment advisory, you really get to help people. You get to help people with basic compliance functions like filing a tax return, but you also get to help them forecast and make good decisions around their taxes and also their investments. And Evelyn had started off introducing me with specific focus on the finance side, and where that ties back together for me is tax work allows you to look in the past and say calculate an amount of tax due for a client, but investment advisory lets you look forward into their future and figure out how you can advise on tax strategy, but also it allows you to help them answer basic questions they have, like how do I save for college, or I want to buy my first house, how can I do that, or I need to invest for retirement, and helps to answer these questions. And that to me is something that I've always enjoyed doing, really helping people. And this is the way I can do it. I'm not a doctor, but maybe I'm a doctor of money, something like that. So.
Love it. I'm sorry if I'm distracting you guys by typing, little nuggets of what you're saying in the chat as you go. Really interesting stuff, and a really interesting way to combine two disciplines that may not necessarily, usually be combined. All right, Rusty, you are up. You have had a really interesting career. You've been a turnaround CEO. You've been with some tech companies. You advise entrepreneurs now. I know that because I have taken advantage of such advice and coaching. So thank you for that. So why don't you give us a little digest of what have been the interesting parts of your career in business. And you're on mute, Rusty. Wait, Rusty, you're on mute. There we go. There you go.
All right. Thank you, Evelyn. You make my career sound better than it really was, but thank you for that. As opposed to Aidan, who's an early stage leader, I'm more of a late stage leader. I am retired after a business career, but still keep my nose into the business world, working for an organization called SCORE, where we mentor small businesses in the Ventura, LA County area. And one of the things that interests me about that is, A, I keep my nose into the business world, and B, a lot of what I did as a business person was mentoring staff, mentoring the people who were working for me. So this is kind of just an outgrowth of that. But my background, I went to college knowing I was going to be a political science major and become a lawyer. That changed about 6 months in. So whatever you think you're going to do, it may and probably will change. I became an economics major and went into the business world. I'm a native New Yorker, started working for the Nielsen television ratings. Everybody knows about the Nielsen ratings. Well, I started in the back room, churning out numbers, and had a 20-year career there. I made the decision that I wanted to stay within that company. I had a lot of opportunities to move around and get into other jobs in the entertainment world, working for TV stations or ad agencies. But my passion was running a business, and the core of what Nielsen was about was the business of TV ratings. So I worked my way up through there, ended up becoming EVP of marketing, and then general manager of their largest business unit dealing with TV stations around the country. But then coincidentally, not because she was there, but then I joined a company that Barbara Palmer was at. I made the leap in two ways. One, I moved from New York to LA, and two, I moved from an established well-run company that was looking for relative growth year after year. We were at that point in time, part of the Dun & Bradstreet company. And I picked up a family of a wife and a 2-year-old daughter, and for some reason thought it made sense to move 3,000 miles away to an internet startup in 1999, a company called Net Zero. And the interesting thing there was I was brought in to create a research business for Net Zero, but my career expanded well beyond that. We went through a lot of ups and downs, which was kind of new to me because, as I said, Nielsen was a long-term, well-established company. We were doing 3- and 5-year planning as Barbara will recall it. Net Zero, we usually did about 2-week strategic planning. And our business model would change from 1 week to the next. But because we were growing and because things were changing, because things were challenging, there were a lot of different opportunities for me. So I got involved in a lot of different aspects of the core business, we ended up growing through both acquisition and just growth in the business itself to become about $1 billion a year company. In addition to Net Zero, we owned Juno and Classmates.com. We had a web hosting business. We had a shopping business. We owned FTD Florist at one point in time. So we were doing about $1 billion a year of revenue. I then ended up retiring, but not long thereafter, a financial firm in LA made an offer to buy United Online, and they hired me as a consultant to help them through the process. This was one public company buying another public company. So I helped them for 9 months. We ended up acquiring the company. And then they put me in as the CEO of United Online to transition United Online into this new owner. Spent about a year doing that, and then was able to get back out and go back on the golf course and doing the other things I really wanted to do. And as I said, what I'm doing now is working with small business owners, everything from people who are trying to sell their business to a piano teacher who had to work her way through COVID to somebody who's developed software for pharmaceutical services. And these are people who are true entrepreneurs who have great business ideas, but in many cases know nothing about running a business, know nothing about the fundamentals of a business. And that's what I try to do. I try to help them. They're the guys with the great ideas. They're the guys with the real passion. But I try to, kind of keep them in line with what they need to do to make sure that this great idea can turn into a great business.
Love it.
Happy to answer any questions as we go through the process.
Fabulous. All right. So Barbara, you're actually the only one who didn't tell us where you went to school and what you studied. So fill us in.
So it's interesting because I heard a lot of change amongst the other panelists. And so I went to college as a means to getting to law school. And so for every college I applied, I had a different major, and depending on what their specialty was, I was going to play for 4 years, and then I was going to law school anyway, so it didn't matter. And so I ended up going to a small liberal arts school, Ithaca College in upstate New York, not far from where Rusty went to school in upstate New York. And I was a television radio major. Actually, I was a corporate communications major first. And about 6 months in, that wasn't as fun as I wanted. So I changed to television radio because, again, it didn't matter. I was going to law school. And then I did go to law school for 2.5 years, and I never finished. So for anyone who doesn't know, law school is 3 years long, and I chose to leave 6 months before I finished. And it was probably the pivotal and best decision that I ever made in my life. Because as hard as it was as a 24-year-old to walk away from what I always thought was my dream, I knew myself well enough that if I had finished, I would have been a lawyer in Washington, D.C., where I had a job offer, and that was not my destiny. That was not sitting well with me. And I ended up finding a new career. And I think what we've heard from a lot of people here, and it's a great lesson to anyone who is earlier stage career or figuring out what's going on. You don't have all the answers at 17, 18, 24, 57. Life is going to happen to you in ways that you don't anticipate. And so being in touch with what your core values are, what matters to you, how you want to prioritize work against all the other things that you want to do, Rusty on the golf course and Aidan being in Colorado, you want to take all of those things into consideration. And you may not make choices that end up being the end result that you expected, but it is going to put you on a path toward whatever comes next. And some of that might be, it wasn't where I was supposed to go, but it led me to the next thing. But I think you're going to hear a lot of different stories, and mine started early to pivot around to find what I wanted, but then I was open to opportunity. So going from entertainment to technology that didn't even exist. I used to type my papers in high school and college and use whiteout and all of these other things. And then there were these computers, and then there were these cell phones and all of that. There is so much opportunity when you watch the world evolve with you and you seek opportunities. So great presentation classes, right? Learn how to public speak, learn how to build presentations, learn how to communicate well. Those are all things that are going to serve you even with evolving industry.
Yep. So I love what you just said. There are transferable skills that you'll learn and that will allow you to move into different disciplines. I also thought I was going to law school when I started college. And by the end of college, I said, I don't want to look at the inside of a library for 3 more years. I'm done with this. And I got a master's degree as fast as I could and jammed out of that. So one of our attendees wants to know, how do you know? I think all of you will have really interesting and different perspectives on this. How do you know which major you should pursue? If you look at the business, department or college within any given university, you'll find 5, 6, 18 different sort of sub concentrations, right? So Scott, you said that you started in the business school and then you realized you didn't like accounting, and so you switched over to public administration. How and when will you know what you really like? Maybe Scott, go first, and then Aidan, you did start and finish in a business program, right? So why don't you guys get us started, and then let's see where that takes us.
For me, being in the business school, as I mentioned earlier, there were several classes that I liked. I liked the organizational behavior classes. There's a lot of things that spoke to me within the business school, but the thought of doing accounting and finance for others and taking that in a career path did not speak to me. Real estate was always a passion for me. I really enjoyed it from the time I was in high school. I enjoyed it. I just different facets of the real estate world. And so realizing that there was another major within the university at USC that spoke to me, that offered me an opportunity to pursue my passion. And there was an overlap, but then I stayed the course of getting that degree. But you're going to follow, and it's a lot of what Barbara said and Rusty said. You're not going to know everything while you're going through the course. There's no way you can predict where the future is going to take you and the different paths that all of us have followed. I can tell you, looking back 40 odd years, I never could have written this script. But the one thing that I was able to do was continually fine tune it to follow the path that spoke to me, to be able to enjoy what I am doing. And I think that's what I'm hearing from everybody, because I had opportunities. I could have gone to law school. I could have taken over a law practice. It sounded horrible to me. It didn't speak to me. The idea of doing that on a daily basis would have been regrettable in the long run. And when I look back in the rearview mirror, I'm really pleased with the decisions that I made. Did I know I was going to do development deals? No. Did I know I was going to get into multifamily and how it was going to evolve exactly? No. But you continue to fine tune it as opportunities present themselves and have it speak to you.
I love that. And it's so sort of cliche, our parents used to tell us, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? Because your work won't feel like work. I don't feel like my work feels like work. I love what I do. And it's super cliche, but it's really true. Really true. Aidan, how did you know, and how did you know before you started college, and how did you know you wanted to stick with the path you picked?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, Scott, thank you for everything that you added. I thought that was awesome, and it definitely resonates with me in many ways. For me, I would say when you're considering, all of these big life decisions, make sure that you get comfortable with the fact that things can change. And just because you envisioned it one way for, as long as you can remember, it doesn't mean that you're going to be that. So I would say, if anything, try and be intentional about your experiences and what you pursue. So when I was in high school, I thought without a shadow of a doubt, I was going to become a pharmacist. And then, so I did all the sciences, very heavy science course load, went into my senior year and did a shadowing experience with a PharmD and went, holy smokes, that's not what I want to do at all. And I bring that up because it's important to, seek out those experiences. People in the industry, in mine and in any other, we're happy to engage with, young, energetic people who want to explore and want to know, so if you're thinking about a career in one area, feel free to ask somebody about that. Connect with them on LinkedIn, send them a message, ask them to get a coffee with you. I bet you 9 times out of 10 or greater, they're not going to tell you no. And if it's somebody like me or any of these other leaders on this call, we're definitely not going to tell you no. And we're going to take you up on that offer for coffee and sit down and, talk about things. So try and be intentional with, that pursuit of just exploring. Like, it's okay. And if you find that it's not for you, that's perfectly okay. So after my experience shifted from pharmacy to what am I going to do now? Candidly, I got really lucky. I mean, I went into college saying, okay, I'll do business because I think my mind works like that. And I think business is a very pivotal part of life, but I had no idea how much that would blossom through my college career. Now, the next thing that I would say would be an intentional piece to look for while you're looking for a college program is when you're connecting with admissions counselors, ask them how their program's set up. Is it an exploratory based program? Do you get a little flavor of every part of business during your journey? And make sure that when you're asking those questions and hopefully you hear yes, it is catered to that. Then once you settle in, know that you can trust the process. Like all those prereqs and all of those things, those curriculums are designed to try and help you figure out what you wanted to do. Because after I decided I wanted to do business, I was dead set on human resources. I wanted to be involved with the people and development and helping people find their passions. And I took the intro to HR course, and I remember going home to my mom and saying, no way, that is not that. This isn't the piece for me. I'm going to go through this semester and then I have to move on. But luckily, because of the way our program was structured, I found supply chain and fell in love with it. So I did a double concentration in supply chain and organization and innovation management, which coupled my passion for logistical things and managing people. So it was still part of what I wanted to do, managing people, empowering them, but it was through a different lens. So I would just say with that, act with intentionality, but also get comfortable with the fact that it's not set in stone, it can change. And then if you do your homework and pick your programs the way that you want to and have good conversations, you'll find that it's really set up for you to find your passion in a way that you're not expecting, but it'll come. So.
Danny, I want to go back to the concept that accounting and investment management are two of the more well-known, possible concentrations in business. Are there in your daily practice, or have there been things that you didn't expect in either of those? What if you were advising your 18-year-old self, about going into either of those fields, what would you tell yourself? What would you have wanted to know?
Ooh, that's a tough one. How much money I was going to make. In all seriousness, I think the reality is it's hard to even have a clue about how vast either of those two categories are, whether it be accounting or finance. I think Aidan pointed out a lot of different things that I think are really important to remember. And I was trying to figure out how they might relate to both of those. And I think the biggest question or the biggest decision is if you pursue one of those fields, it's really about having the technology of business at your fingertips. It's having an understanding in the case of finance, basic accounting, how to read financial statements, statistics. On the accounting side, it's a lot more technical in the sense you're almost training to be a lawyer who doesn't sit for the JD. I should say the bar. But in both experience or both fields, I would say there's no good way to really understand how complex any of it gets until you've done it for a long time. So I would never really want someone to feel like they have to make a decision. Hey, I'm going to be an accountant. Well, what does that mean? Are you going to be in tax? Are you going to be in audit? Are you going to be in forensics? Do you want to specialize in an industry like real estate? Or do you want to do hedge fund math? I mean, there's so many varieties of that. And on the finance side, it's the same. We learn basic concepts of finance, but they can be applied to so many different things. You could be a research analyst like I was looking at stocks, or you can be a debt analyst looking at fixed income products that are available. You can do underwriting, investment banking. There's a variety that just there I've touched on that doesn't include all sorts of other things you might do as well. But I think the most important thing is being exposed to that variety as early as possible, so you can start to figure out what that actually means in choosing courses and maybe your first or second internship. But don't commit yourself to something too soon other than having the technical background if you're going to pursue either one of these fields, because frankly, it's too hard to know at 18, 22, even at 35, I think for some people, exactly where their career will be when they're 55.
Right.
So I think that's important to remember.
That's great. And by the way, I always tell my students that I found my dream job at 38. So don't be afraid of that. I have both Aidan and Barbara messaging me privately. Wait, I have something to add on to what Danny's saying. So Aidan, you go first, and then Barbara, and then P.S. I have a follow-up question for you, Danny.
Perfect. No, I was just going to say, Danny, I think what you said is so spot on. And I think the important thing to remember, and this is especially true in my case, is that you can go through your whole collegiate experience. You can be a finance major, an accounting major. You can have this specialization, and then all of a sudden you don't even end up in the industry that you studied. And that's perfectly okay. Like on paper, I have absolutely no right being a leader in healthcare. I mean, fundamentally, I did not study that. I didn't pursue it. But at the end of the day, the important thing to remember, and I think this ties in really well with your point, is going to college and getting your education, no matter what you pursue, whether it's business or economics or communications or so on and so forth, it's the foundation of what you're going to do next. So just because your specialization may not match your title straight out of the gate, that's okay. It's how you utilize all those base skills to grow and evolve and really, become a subject matter expert in the role that you're in at the time, regardless of what you majored in per se. So,
yep. Love that, Barbara.
And it's a good add-on to what both Danny and Aidan were saying. You may be 17, 18 years old and you have no idea what you want to study in college, and that's okay. My belief of the college experience is to experience college. It's discovery, it's curiosity. And so if you have the opportunity to take lots of different classes in lots of different areas and start to hone your interests, or you come out with a degree and you're not really sure what you're going to do, if you find some of those transferable skills and transferable classes, it makes it easier to come up with the narrative or the story. But I think that there is a lot of pressure, particularly in our community, that you not only know what school you're going to, but what you're going to study and what you're going to do for your career. And you aren't supposed to know at 17 or 18. And so if you can go into it, even if you think you want to do something very specific, but broaden and say, a doctor needs to be able to communicate well. A finance person needs creativity. If you think you're going to go into a startup, we need entrepreneurs. And I think Rusty raised that point earlier. In a startup, it's everybody swims in the pool. What needs to get done? How can we get it done as fast as possible? How do we pivot? When you're in an organization or you get into a growth firm, then you start to swim in a swim lane. Then you need to be an expert in some degree. But what can you learn and how can you look at college to absorb as much as possible and to also be a part of a community? That's part of going to college as well. What do you contribute to the community? What do you take from it? How do you participate? So there's just so much here that I think you can get out of it. And I wish I had known that looking in the rearview mirror. I wish someone had told me to not be so focused on getting to law school, because I didn't know what if when law school failed, or when I decided I didn't want to do it. I was doing well, but at that point I was overwhelmed with, well, I know doctor, teacher, lawyer, nurse. What if what I'm supposed to do is completely different? And that's exactly where I landed, in a field that I didn't know existed until I was in it. So those transferable skills helped.
So no one ever would have predicted that Evelyn would ever say anything like this. It's all about the journey, not the destination. I'm summarizing what you're saying. Yeah.
Hey,
Rusty,
Evelyn, can I add something too?
Yes,
It's kind of interesting because we were talking, there's kind of a difference between what kind of an education you get. So Barbara and I both had liberal arts degrees, or degrees from liberal arts schools. The other three guys have more bigger universities where they're in the business school or whatever it might be. Obviously I enjoyed the liberal arts. Colgate has 2,500 students, and you were an economics major, or unless you knew you wanted to go to medical school and there were specific chemistry classes or bio classes that you had to take, it was really wide open for us in terms of what we could take. And Barbara touched on it being the journey. It is maybe because my GPA wasn't the greatest in the world, I got more outside of the classroom than I did in the classroom. You're going to grow more in those 4 years than you will in any other 4 years of your life. And the advice I would give to people is challenge yourself, get out of your comfort zone. We're all coming from this Calabasas, West Valley bubble. And the nice thing about going to college is you're getting to a completely different environment. You're on your own. You're meeting people who are so different than the people you grew up with. Going from Long Island, a middle-class community in Long Island, to, a small town in upstate New York, surrounded by farms with people who had never seen a Jew before, was quite an eye-opener for me. So challenge yourself, take classes that you wouldn't otherwise even think about. Take an art history class, take a class in African-American literature. Don't do just what's comfortable. Challenge yourself and get involved outside of the classroom. You're going to grow so much if you do that. The classroom obviously is important, but there's so much more to the whole college journey than just what's happening within the classroom. And take advantage of it, because it's 4 years that you'll never get back.
So true. Thank you for that. So one of our counselors is listening in, and she says she has students who don't know anyone in the professions they're interested in pursuing. So Aidan and Scott, can you guys jump in on this? How would a high school student or even a young college student reach out to a professional like you who you have no connection with and ask? Aidan, you kind of touched on, link in with people, and I put in the chat, as soon as you start college, for all those students who are on this on this webinar, you need to get yourself a LinkedIn account.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do that. Make the LinkedIn, connect with everyone you meet. I did that diligently for the 3.5 years that I was in college. I mean, I connected with everybody that I possibly could or thought of. Which everybody on this panel, I'll be connecting with you. And for everybody watching, feel free to connect with me. But it really is, it's not nearly as daunting as it seems. Like, to send a message to someone who's a, business professional or a professional in whatever area you're interested in, just give it a shot. It's okay. Like, we're all people. And I think 99% of the folks out there that you're going to send a message to are going to send something back and say, hey, yes, I'm happy to mentor. I'm happy to take a phone call. I'm happy to do this. Because I think once everyone gets into the industry, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day of what we're doing, but it's really rewarding even for us to have someone reach out and say, hey, I want to know more about what you do. We're just, because we're in the work world doesn't mean, we don't seek interest or validation from others too. It's really rewarding. So to be asked to give back is really a gift. So I would say, go for it. Ultimately, send that email, check out that person on the website, call the company. I mean, you'd be surprised where those kinds of things lead. And I still do that every day, like to advocate for my rural health system. I call up companies all the time. I had an experience today where I connected with someone just via the phone through his marketing department. And now we're working on setting up a brand new, innovative program for my health system. So I would just say, take the shot. You've really got nothing to lose. And most of the time, the folks on the other end are going to be happy to extend a hand. So
fabulous. Scott, what would you say to that?
I think that what Aidan said is very accurate. I think be brave, reach out, speak to people. If you're speaking to somebody, you don't know who that person may know, who they may introduce you to. Not everybody is going to be on LinkedIn. I know that's a big way of doing it, Facebook or whatever the social media platforms are out there. Being on boards, getting involved in community. There's so many different ways, and you don't know who you're going to run into. And that all ties back to, you don't know what path you're going to follow, what company you may get involved in because of an introduction, because of somebody you met possibly by chance. But ask questions, be curious, and be open-minded to, if somebody's in one arena, they may know somebody else in another area that may speak to you, and take advantage of it. Again, I'm just repeating what Aidan said, but be brave and be curious.
I love all of that. That's great advice. Danny.
I also want to add, it's very easy in professional careers to find organizations where you can reach out and speak to people. And a perfect example, I am a certified public accountant. I'm a member of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and also the California Society of CPAs. Those organizations make tremendous efforts to introduce the profession, career to young people. They offer scholarships. There's many things they do. And those organizations are probably great places to seek out mentors. That's likely true for real estate. I'm pretty sure most credentialed fields, probably across the board with regard to medicine and lots of other fields, whatever they might be, things we probably don't even know all the ABCs after people's names that you can think of. There are likely organizations, trade associations, et cetera, that can offer support to young people trying to learn more.
I just want to go back to something Scott said, that I think high school students often, especially in the conversations we have with them, often you guys think like, I'm doing XYZ for college. I'm doing it to look good for college, right? But what Scott just said is actually you should get involved in organizations because in the long run, you will benefit from those connections. You could benefit personally, you could benefit professionally, and eventually when you're at a certain point in your career, you will be the one helping others benefit from that affiliation, right? So in high school, you've gotten involved in things because we've told you that that's what you're supposed to do, and so you can make a nice resume, and colleges will hopefully let you in. But in the end, colleges are building a community of people who contribute to the community, right? And in grown-up communities and professional communities, as Danny just described, we do exactly the same thing that you do in high school. So you're going to do that for your whole life, but you will get to a point when you're not actually doing it just to look good. You're actually doing it because it's a good thing to do in the grand scheme of your life, right? I mean, all of us are members of multiple organizations, religious organizations, professional organizations, and we make personal and professional friends from those organizations. So I feel like that sounds weird to a high school student, but it's like all that stuff you've been doing for the last couple of years, you're going to keep doing it for the rest of your life. Rusty, do you want to jump in on this?
No, I think everybody's been accurate. I think the one piece of advice I give to people is when you do network, just because you don't know somebody in a field, you know somebody who may know somebody in that field. But the important thing is anytime you get together with somebody, the last question you should always ask is there somebody else you think I should talk to?
Yeah.
So that way you just kind of multiply that networking. So whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for information about an industry, whoever you talk to, people are more than willing to help out. Just at the last thing before you go away, is there anybody else you could introduce me to?
Wow. Boom, another mic dropping moment. I love that. Barbara, you are a little bit of an expert on LinkedIn. Give us a couple tips.
Well, I actually wanted to pick up exactly on what Rusty just said, which is it doesn't hurt to ask for another introduction. So to Aidan's point, reach out to people, but I would say ask for something limited. Do you have 10 minutes to share your insights? And if someone says no, because the worst thing that could happen is they say no and you feel horrible, you could say, is there someone on your team that I can speak with about your organization or about their path? And I love what Rusty said, because it is the next person connects to the next person. And so what you want to be is top of mind. You want them to know who you are. So when they hear about an internship, they say, hey, I just met this really great kid. I think they should be considered. Or, hey, a friend was just telling me they're starting an internship program. You might be interested. So here are some tips on LinkedIn. For anyone who's unfamiliar with it, you go in and you answer a couple of things. When you're in high school or college, you're putting in the clubs you participated in or the community service that you've done. But over time, you're going to replace it with an internship or a college job. It can be paid or not paid. It doesn't matter. But what you're showing on there is that you have experience. And what you want to do is get to at least 500 contacts, which sounds like a lot, but we can get you there. Because what happens on LinkedIn is up to 500, they show you the exact number. Scott has 71 contacts. Rusty has 43. But as soon as you get to 500, it says 500 plus. Okay, so there's something about I've done my work to connect. So how do you connect with people? Start with your friends and family, then go out to people. Anytime you participate in a webinar or you read an article or you listen to a podcast, connect or follow them on LinkedIn. Yep. Then if you're interested in a company, I wear Nike shoes, I love Adidas jackets, go in and connect with their head of marketing or their head of finance. You can find them, you type in the company and then you look for that person. It may be celebrities. You may want to follow Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey or whomever. And you start to build what your connections are. But really what you're doing is you're building your feed. Your feed is going to give you information. When they post, you're going to see it. When I follow the chief marketing officer at Apple, when there's a job posting at Apple, it automatically comes into my feed. And they start to target. The algorithm says, oh, if you're interested in this person, you might want to also follow this person. So You don't need to know them to follow them or to connect with them. And every time you go to a class and there's a presenter or you read a book, go in and connect with them on LinkedIn. And you'll see how quickly it happens. And I'm not saying go in and connect with 500 people. I'm saying once a week, sit down and send out 10 connection notices. I've already sent Aidan one because before we got on the call, we had 2 minutes and we want to follow up on business. It's going to take him 2 seconds to accept, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So it's one of those things you want to be disciplined about. And when it comes time to look for a job, you can actually go into LinkedIn, put in internship, say only show me the internships in a certain area or that were posted in the last 24 hours. And that's key. You don't want to look at every internship that's been posted for a year. You want to look at the fresh ones, the ones that they're looking for applications today and tomorrow, because you don't want to be number 1,500 to apply. You want to be in the top 100. Those are the resumes they look at. And so there's lots of different tricks as you get more comfortable. And the last piece I would say is LinkedIn Learning. So LinkedIn has a whole curriculum where if you want to know about Excel, go in and do a LinkedIn Learning session on Excel. Maybe that shows me I'm really good with numbers and I should pursue a class in Excel, or maybe there's one on public speaking or leadership. But the more that you can show that you're a continuous learner, by the way, every one of those classes you take, you can list on your resume or you can list on your LinkedIn. And it shows that I'm naturally curious, that I'm going above and beyond, that I got certified in Google AdWords or analytics or any of those things. So if those are things that are of interest to you. And the last thing I would say, because I don't want to take too much time, is also start to look around just your world. So I'm drinking out of a Snapple bottle. So someone made the beverage inside, but someone decided that the bottle should look like this and that they should put 6 in a 6-pack and 12 in a 12-pack. And that they should ship not cold or whatever it is. And so you start to realize a graphics person did the design, a product person did the feel, a plastics molder did the supply chain. And so that actually opens up opportunity. And all of a sudden your business degree could be in supply economics. It's not just in accounting or just in the fields you know. So the world is created by a lot of jobs that aren't even in your awareness. And that goes back to be brave, be curious, take that odd course and see where it leads, and then talk to people who are in product design, product management, because that might be of interest to you.
See, this is kind of my point about business. Everybody knows accounting. Everybody knows, the stock market. They may not know it's called finance, but they know the stock market, right? But they don't know what forensic accounting is. They don't know what supply chain management means. They know what entrepreneurship is, in that they think that means you're starting your own business, but they don't really know what that involves. Somebody wants to know if you think a high school student should have a LinkedIn account. Let me just say, to me, I get no more joy than when I get a LinkedIn request from one of my former students who I've just recently sent off to college. Personally, I feel like it's something you do the minute you get to college, you start your LinkedIn. Should it be done earlier? Anyone? Could be.
No reason not to.
If you have something to say. What if you have 3 jobs when you're in high school? Why not?
Yeah, it's your LinkedIn is, it's an extension of where you've been and what you've done. And I think it's your resume on steroids. Your resume is your one pager, your top highlights, what's most pertinent to the job you're applying for, whatever opportunity you're pursuing. But your LinkedIn it's your story. I've had one since I was in high school, and it talks about every little thing that I've done since then. But it's pretty cool whenever someone like a recruiter or whoever's looking at your page, or someone you request to connect with, they can take a peek at that and see like, oh, maybe we were both in the theater guild or something. You just never know. There's all kinds of things
in common
that you can build upon and start the relationship that way, or conversation. So
and the again, just like the clubs you do in high school are on your high school resume now, the clubs that you do in college, if you take leadership responsibilities, right? If you're the marketing chair of your fraternity, that goes on your LinkedIn, because that is real world experience, right? It's not a job, but it is real world experience.
And the same resume you put together for your college application when you're in high school can translate into your LinkedIn profile, because it is, I walked on Relay for Life, and then I went on a committee. Okay, that shows growth and responsibility. Your high school, your college, all of those things. And then you're part of an alumni group. All of a sudden you're connecting with people you went to high school or you're in college with, or your fraternity. If you were an AEPI at one school, the other AEPIs around the country will see you as well. And that becomes that common community. So I agree with Aidan. I think it is your digital resume, and it is a way to start to build your profile. And I would just say continuously update it, because that puts it into other people's feeds as well. And if you take on responsibility, they see that growth, and it doesn't matter if you're paid for it. It's whether you're doing it and what the tasks are involved.
That's right. And that's where your transferable skills come in, right? And one of you said, I can't remember who, one of you said, there are jobs that are out there that are far beyond what you guys know, exists today: doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse, right? Okay, so we're going to do a quick little round robin. We'll start with Rusty and we'll go backwards, at least on my screen. So Rusty, Danny, Scott, Aidan, Barbara, give us your best tip. So Barbara gets the most time to think about it. Give us your best tip for what you would say to a 17, 18-year-old high school student who thinks they want to major in business in college, but isn't quite sure.
Well, it goes back to what I said before, which is just try to do a lot of different things when you're in school. If you want to start with business, that's great, but don't limit yourself to that. Just about everybody around this screen, I think, ended up doing something different than what they first went to school to do. So if you think it's going to be business, you can go down that path, but don't be that narrow focused. Try different things. Look at things that might interest you. Look at clubs that might interest you, different classes. So just keep your eyes wide open. It is, it's been said before in this meeting, 18-year-olds they may think they know what they want, but they really don't. And it's not a negative against an 18-year-old. It's that you don't even know everything that's out there. So my tip is just try a lot of different things. You can start going down that business path, but don't cut yourself off from other things.
Danny?
Sorry, I wasn't sure who was next.
Yeah.
I think looking back on what I had available to me, I was in the business school at both USC as a freshman, and I transferred to Berkeley in my sophomore year, and then I went to the Berkeley Business School. And in both schools, they did a great job of hosting recruiters from a lot of large organizations. And I'm thinking specifically on the accounting side, I must have met with all of the top four accounting firms at the time, within, my guess, the first 2 weeks of being in my master's program at SC. And those people came and they told you about what they did. And don't get me wrong, we didn't really have a clue what they were telling us. We were listening to the words, we understood the English, but until you do the work, you really don't know. And I think maybe Rusty has hit on this before. A lot of exposure is really the key. So you can go and listen to a lot of people tell you what they do. You can take a lot of courses and learn about some subject matter that you didn't know about. But don't have an illusion that you're supposed to have figured it out by the time you're a junior and you have to declare or something like that. So I would probably take advantage of those opportunities.
That is super practical advice, and I love that. Sometimes I will just interject here. Sometimes I'm researching colleges with a student who is, biology major, chemistry major, computer science, and we're reading words, and I can most of the time pronounce the words, but man, I have no idea what those things say. And sometimes my high school students do. I'm always super impressed with that. All right, Scott, you have given me advice in my life. I will say that, but now you get to give a room full of people advice.
I'm going to echo what Rusty said, and Danny as well. I think to Rusty's point, be open-minded, take different courses, get exposed to different things. Find out what speaks to you as you're taking these courses, because you may change direction or, again, just fine-tune it, but explore, be open-minded, know what direction you want to go in. You may think you know what direction you want, and it may change. And if it changes, that's okay. Don't be resistant to that change. Be willing to explore these other areas that may intrigue you as you're exploring your going through the college adventure. And I also want to back up to one thing that's very important, because it ties to the question that you're asking, Evelyn. What Rusty said a while back, you're going to learn more outside the classroom than inside the classroom. The experiences that you're going to have, the people you're going to meet, the clubs you're going to get involved with, the professors you're going to interact with, you may go in a completely different direction. So just be open-minded and enjoy it.
So here's a statistic that no one ever believes, but I promise you it's true. When you are in college, you will be in the classroom 15% of your time, 1-5. That means you will not be in the classroom 85% of the time. That is the extent of Evelyn's math ability. 85% of your college experience will be spent outside the classroom. So couldn't agree with what you just said more. Aidan, tips and advice, and then Barbara.
Yeah, I think everybody has brought up such incredible points. And I am so happy that you just called out that statistic, because that 85% of the time is yours. You know, you make with that time what you want. And I think, you know, just echoing some of the points that have been made, make sure you're comfortable with change. Don't have, you know, a myopic view of, you know, I'm in it, I'm committed, this is the way it has to be. And I say that as someone who is so type A, you know, like I so many times in my life have had that myopicness and gone, okay, I can't possibly change. And I think, Barbara, you know, your story resonated with me. You got 2.5 out of the 3 years of law school and went, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This isn't what I want to do. So to tie that in, I think it's so important to just think about, even if you're not 100% sure all the time, because that's really a false reality, think about what really resonates with you as a person. What do you value and how do you want to shape and craft your life around that? And, you know, for me, I knew I love working with people. I knew I wanted to have the privilege of being a leader. Never would have imagined I would have ended up where I did so quickly after my career or started. But, you know, that's something that was a core value for me. So I just knew that no matter what I did with my business degree or whatever I was going to do in the end when I was starting school, I knew that I had these core values and things that I really wanted to achieve in life. So just think about things that way too. Is there a way that your current experience or college experience, even if it's not a perfect fit, is going to help you achieve the validity that you want, you know, out of life?
Beautiful. Barbara? Rusty, I'll give you one more shot since you've had time to think after Barbara's done.
I appreciate that Aidan brought up, you know, my leaving college, leaving law school at that point. I still use everything that I learned in law school, even though I'm not an attorney. So I may be the best client for every attorney because I get it very close and they go, yeah, that's right. Right. They can just pass it on, especially for in-house counsel. Outside, they want to charge me by the minute. But so I actually sent a graphic to Evelyn that hopefully she'll share with the group after. But here are 10 things that require zero talent. So when you go for that internship or you start out at a club or you raise your hand to join something in your college experience, you may think I have nothing to offer, right? That's called imposter syndrome. I have nothing to offer and they're going to figure it out. They're going to think I'm a fake. But here are the things that you show up with every single time. And this is the foundation for being successful. Being on time, right? Being respectful of other people's time and showing up and doing what you're supposed to be doing when you say you're going to do it. Your work ethic. Right? I'm in here to work hard. I'm in here to learn, putting in effort and energy, what your body language is, particularly if it's a remote opportunity. Do you show up, you know, like this, or do you show up all in and with enthusiasm, showing passion for the work that you're doing? It might be grunt work, but guess what? That's foundational. If I prove I'm doing a good job on the foundational work, then they're going to give me the better projects, the better opportunities. Doing the extra, not just handing something in, but making sure there aren't any errors or grammatical errors or spelling errors. Being prepared, coming prepared in the moment. What is expected of me? I'm going to come ready. That's for your classes, but it's also for your extracurriculars. Being coachable, that means you take feedback. Don't be afraid of feedback. Be afraid of silence. Feedback is, I'm invested in seeing you be successful. I'm invested in seeing you do better. And the last one is your attitude. You 100% control your attitude. So do you show up ready to learn, ready to gain feedback, ready to do what's needed? Or do you show up with a chip on your shoulder that you don't want to be there and you're kind of tired and you're kind of pissed off? People see these 10 things. And so I just think it's a really great life lesson wherever you go, to join the fraternity or the sorority, to join the club, to show up for a charity event, for your classwork. Whatever you do, go into it because you might actually be surprised in what you get out of it. It may not have been what you expected.
Exactly. I just shared my screen, obviously, so everyone saw it. And I just dropped that image into the chat, so you should be able to download it. We will be light editing this video and posting it up on our blog. I'll put the image on the blog post as well. Rusty, you had a chance to think. One more piece of advice.
Yeah, the one thing that I would add is don't wait to use the career counseling group at college until your senior year when you're looking for a job. Go in there freshman year, talk to the counselors, find out the kinds of companies that are coming to campus and the kinds of jobs that they're offering. You may learn about different jobs that you never would have thought about. They may have tests that they can give you that help align your skill sets with different kinds of jobs. So don't utilize them at the end of your 4 years. Start utilizing them right at the beginning, because they're gonna help you. You're gonna learn from them. They're gonna help guide you in terms of the kinds of classes you should be taking. And so use the career counseling group right from the start.
In fact, I would say when you go visit colleges as you're touring them, go to the career counseling office then. Usually when you go on a college tour, you do a 45-minute info session and an hour tour, and then they say goodbye to you. Take an hour or two extra, go visit the department you're interested in majoring in. Call in advance, see if you can meet with a professor, and visit the career counseling office to see how invested they are in their students, to see where their students are getting internships and jobs. I'm glad I gave you time to throw in one more piece of advice after thinking. You guys, I have done so many of these panels, and hands down, this one has been the absolute best. You've answered all of our panel, all of our audience questions. I really, really thank you for spending a little bit over an hour with me this evening. Thank you, those of you who joined us. And as I said, we will post this on our blog. Thank you, Barbara, Aidan, Scott, Danny, Rusty. Everyone have a great evening. Thank you.